The global Christian community is mourning the loss of beloved worship leader and songwriter Brian Doerksen, whose music has inspired millions of believers around the world for more than 3 decades. Following his passing at the age of 60 after a brief battle with stage 4 cancer, churches across continents have united in prayer, worship, and remembrance, celebrating a man whose songs became an essential part of modern Christian worship. News of Brian's passing prompted an immediate outpouring of grief from pastors, musicians, worship leaders, and fans who had been deeply touched by his ministry. While his family continues to grieve privately, Christians around the world have gathered in churches, homes, and online communities to honor the remarkable legacy he leaves behind. According to a statement released by his family, Brian Doerksen passed away peacefully at his family home on July 21, surrounded by his loved ones. His family described his passing as peaceful and expressed heartfelt gratitude for the overwhelming support, prayers, and encouragement they received throughout his illness. They thanked friends, churches, and supporters worldwide for standing with them during such a difficult time. Only a short time before his passing, Brian's family revealed that doctors had diagnosed him with stage 4 cancer following months of unexplained health concerns. Because the illness progressed rapidly, the diagnosis came as a shock not only to his loved ones, but also to the worldwide Christian music community. The exact type of cancer was not publicly disclosed. As news of his diagnosis spread, thousands of churches and prayer groups began praying for healing. Social media quickly filled with messages of faith, encouragement, and scripture as believers from around the world lifted Brian and his family in prayer. Despite the seriousness of his illness, family members shared that Brian remained remarkably peaceful throughout his final days. His faith never wavered, and those closest to him said he continued encouraging others even while facing his own physical struggles. One of the family's final updates revealed that Brian's kidneys had begun failing, indicating that his condition had become critical. Yet even during those difficult moments, they described him as calm, grateful, and completely focused on God's faithfulness. According to those closest to him, Brian spent his final days surrounded by family members, sharing moments of love, prayer, and gratitude. His family later shared that he continued thanking doctors, nurses, caregivers, and everyone who had prayed for him throughout his illness. On the morning of July 21, Brian peacefully passed away at home. His family described him as a beacon of light whose love for Jesus and for people remained evident until his final breath. Following the announcement of his passing, tributes immediately began pouring in from across the Christian world. British worship leader Tim Hughes remembered Brian as one of the songwriters who shaped modern worship music. He described Faithful One as one of his favorite worship songs ever written and thanked Brian for encouraging worship leaders around the world through both his music and his friendship. American worship artist Baloche shared emotional memories of ministering alongside Brian for many years. He reflected on songwriting retreats, worship conferences, and countless conversations about serving God through music. Baloche described Brian as generous, humble, and completely devoted to helping others encounter God through worship. Australian worship leader Darlene Zschech also paid tribute, calling Brian a faithful servant whose influence reached churches across every continent. She thanked his family for sharing him with the global church and prayed that God's peace would comfort them during their time of loss. Tributes also arrived from pastors, Christian organizations, worship teams, and thousands of believers who shared personal stories about how Brian's music had impacted their lives. Many recalled singing his songs during baptisms, weddings, prayer meetings, mission trips, and moments of personal hardship. For millions of Christians, Brian Doerksen's greatest legacy is found in the songs he wrote. Classics including Come, Now Is the Time to Worship, Refiner's Fire, Faithful One, Hope of the Nations, and many others became worship anthems sung in churches around the world. His music has been translated into multiple languages and continues to unite believers across denominations and cultures. Unlike many successful recording artists, Brian often said that his greatest desire was never personal recognition. Instead, he wanted every song to help people focus on God rather than the songwriter. Friends frequently described him as humble, approachable, and deeply compassionate. Young worship leaders often spoke about his willingness to mentor them, answer questions, and encourage them to write songs rooted in Scripture instead of popularity. Although Brian achieved international recognition, those who knew him personally say he remained the same gentle and gracious person throughout his life. As Christians continue remembering Brian, many have wondered about funeral and memorial arrangements. At this time, the family has not publicly announced complete details regarding the funeral service. They have asked for privacy as they mourn together while expressing sincere appreciation for the worldwide support they have received. Instead of focusing on public ceremonies, churches across Canada, the United States, Europe, Australia, and many other nations have already begun holding worship gatherings and memorial services celebrating Brian's life and ministry. Congregations have spent time singing the very songs he wrote, creating meaningful moments of remembrance that reflect the purpose of his life's work. Many worship leaders have noted that there could be no more fitting tribute than hearing thousands of voices continue singing the songs Brian faithfully wrote for God's glory. His family has also encouraged supporters to remember Brian not simply by mourning his death, but by continuing to worship with sincerity, compassion, and hope, the very values he tried to express throughout his ministry. Brian Doerksen's influence extends far beyond albums or awards. His songs became prayers for people facing grief, illness, uncertainty, and celebration. They have comforted families in hospitals, encouraged missionaries serving overseas, strengthened churches during difficult seasons, and helped countless believers draw closer to God. Even today, churches around the world continue opening worship services with "Come, now is the time to worship," while others find strength in the powerful words of "Refiner's Fire" and "Faithful One." Those songs remain part of the spiritual lives of millions. Brian is survived by his beloved wife and their 6 children, who have thanked the worldwide Christian community for the extraordinary outpouring of love, prayers, and encouragement shown during this difficult season. Although his earthly ministry has come to an end, the impact of Brian Doerksen's life continues every Sunday in churches around the globe. Every congregation that sings one of his songs, every worship leader inspired by his example, and every believer strengthened through his music carries forward the legacy of a man who faithfully dedicated his gifts to serving God. His voice may now be silent, but the songs he wrote continue to echo across nations, reminding millions that true worship is not about the person leading the music. It is about pointing every heart toward Christ. That enduring message is the legacy Brian Doerksen leaves behind, and it will continue inspiring generations of believers for years to come.